Go ahead and jump right into it here. If everyone would like to stand for the blessing before the reading. And I will be reading in Genesis chapter 41, verse 8, if you'd like to start turning there. Bless the Lord, the Blessed One. Blesses the Lord, the Blessed One, for all eternity. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who has selected us from all the peoples and has given us his Torah. Blessed are you, O Lord, giver of the Torah. All right. Genesis chapter 41, starting in verse 8, and I'll read through verse 40. In the morning, his mind was troubled. I'm going to actually pause real quick there just to let you know what happened before this. This is the Pharaoh in Egypt. He just had his dreams, two dreams that had the same meaning about the cows and the seven sheaves. So anyways, this is the morning, and that night he had just had these dreams, and so we read, in the morning his mind was troubled, so he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dream, but no one could interpret them for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today I am reminded of my shortcomings. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants, and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. Each of us had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Now a Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, giving each man the interpretation of his dream. And things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was hanged." So Pharaoh sent for Joseph and was quickly brought from the dungeon. When he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." "I cannot do it," Joseph replied to Pharaoh, "but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when out of the river there came up 7 fat and sleek cows, and they grazed among the reeds. After them 7 other cows came up, scrawny and very ugly and lean. I had never seen such ugly cows in all the land of Egypt. The lean, ugly cows ate up the 7 fat cows that came up first, but even after they ate them, no one could tell that they had done so. They looked just as ugly as before. Then I woke up. In my dreams I also saw 7 heads of grain, full and good, growing on a single stalk. After them 7 other heads sprouted, withered and thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 good heads. I told this to the magicians, but none could explain it to me." Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "The dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and the same. The 7 lean, ugly cows that came up afterwards are 7 years, and so are the 7 worthless heads of grain scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is just as I said to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will follow them. Then all the abundance in Egypt will be forgotten, and the famine will ravage the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered, because the famine that follows it will be so severe." The reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in 2 forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by God, and God will do it soon. And now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man, and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take 1/5 of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming, and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh, to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the country, to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all of his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom the Spirit of God is one in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you." All right, we'll have the blessing after the reading. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who gave us the Torah through his servant Moses, and the realization of grace and truth through his servant Yeshua, our Master and Messiah. Blessed are you, O Lord, giver of the Torah, grace and truth. All right, thanks for standing. So this is a very well-known story here. I know most of you know it very well. Goes on. My Torah portion went all the way through chapter 44, so the story continues. As we know, Pharaoh put Joseph in charge during all the 7 good years. He kept aside some of the food, and sure enough, when the 7 bad years came, he was able to hand it out to all the individuals, not only the people in Egypt who suffered from the famine, but also the surrounding areas benefited from Joseph's plan that he had of keeping a reserve set aside. And so, long story short, they had food during the 7 bad years. I don't have a whole lot to go over today. I do want to make a point here real quick in verse 16, if you'd like to go there. Listen, I found this pretty interesting. Listen to what Joseph's response is here. I'll read 15 too, when Pharaoh says this. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream, and no one can interpret it, but I have heard it said that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." This is what Joseph says. "I cannot do it," Joseph replied to Pharaoh, "but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." And so I thought it very interesting, coming from a guy who just came out of a prison that Pharaoh pulled him out of. It would have looked real good for Joseph right here to say, "Yeah, I can give you the right answer." But he chose not to. Instead he gave God the glory for the revelation, I guess. Which to me, that's pretty amazing. This definitely would have been some good brownie points here for Joseph if he could have taken the credit for it. But as we know, even though he did give God the glory, things still turned around in Joseph's favor. I want to turn to 2 Corinthians real quick. You can go ahead and turn there too if you'd like. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 5. Actually starting in verse 4. "Such confidence is this, as this is ours through Christ before God. Not that we are competent in ourselves to claim anything for ourselves, but our competence comes from God." I think that that can relate directly here with what just happened to Joseph. He recognized that it wasn't anything that he was doing that was so great. It was God working through him to give Pharaoh the right answer, which, in the long run saved Egypt and all the surrounding countries. For us, I want to turn to another portion here, Jeremiah. You can also turn there if you'd like. Jeremiah chapter 9. Starting in verse 23. Verse 23 and 24. This is what the Lord says: Let not the wise man boast of his wisdom, or the strong man boast of his strength, or the rich man boast of his riches. But let him who boasts boast about this, that he understands and knows me, and that I am the Lord who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For in these I delight, declares the Lord. So I think it's important for us, if we live a very successful life, it says, if we have riches and all this stuff, especially with it being Thanksgiving this past week, we need to keep in mind that all that stuff God gave to us. It wasn't really, we might have worked hard, we might have done all these things like we should be doing, but as far as the abundance, it comes from God. And, especially in Joseph's situation here, talk about what's the word? When you get promoted, talk about a promotion here. He just went from a dungeon to second in command overnight. And, think about his position. He, not only did he have the responsibilities of being second in command, just, how crazy that would be, I'm sure. It also fell on his shoulders that all of Egypt was going to be coming to him for food. He was the guy to go to, and also for the surrounding nations. So I'm sure there was a lot of weight on this guy's shoulders, and how it's not like he was prepped up to that point. He came from a dungeon into that position. But, through all that, with the spotlight being on him, he didn't let pridefulness grab a hold of him. He stayed humble and gave God the glory for it. So that's what I got out of this, and I hope it meant something to you. Thanks.